who doesn't want to build woolly mammoths?
Boo! Are you scared? Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Max Branstetter, founder and podcast producer at MaxPodcasting, and you can shoot me a note at max@maxpodcasting.com to bring your podcast to life and save you time. This is episode Sweet 116, and today's episode is very scary. I'm talking incredibly scary. There are woolly mammoths, there are chainsaws, there is horror. It's not scary. It just involves those things. But today's guest is Betty Brennan. She is the president and founder of Taylor Studios. If you've ever been to a museum, you probably know that it is the exhibits that make the difference and really bring the history to life. Now, Taylor Studios, Betty, along with her team, are responsible for putting together those creative, breakthrough, incredible exhibits, and they've done this for everybody from Gettysburg to the Adler Planetarium. She has been featured in the Inc. 500. She was named by AI Magazine as their most innovative business leader of the year, and she has been running the show since 1991 and has some amazing lessons on business as well as personal relationships and just having fun. It's Betty B. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Betty Brennan, the founder and president of Taylor Studios, who puts together the best damn museum exhibits and more that you'll ever see. And I'll fight you about that. Betty, thanks for joining. How you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. Well, this is going to be a really cool doozy. I'm just blown away by your story and never met anybody who does something quite like you do. So, so kudos to you for that.
It is a bit unique. Yep.
It is a bit unique. So let's start with your childhood, because why not? I'm curious how someone gets to where you are today. When you were growing up, were you attracted to museums? Were you attracted to nature? What did that look like at an early age for you?
Yeah, so I grew up on a farm and I was my dad's helper. So I was outside all the time. So I did enjoy nature. I was out riding horses or out in the fields or fixing fences or whatever. And so nature certainly was an attraction. We lived out in the country, so I didn't go to a lot of museums, but interest in history. So yeah, I think that foundation helped very much so in building a business, because farming is a bit like a business. And so I had that around me. We hired people. I hired high school friends to do farm work. And so that was a good foundation for hard work, for sure.
You're making me feel great about my life, because you had friends over to do hard work when I had friends over to play video games. So pretty night and day there.
And I couldn't convince them, like, here's an apple, this is going to be great, So we paid them, and but it set a foundation. I wouldn't say leadership by any means, because sometimes I'm like, oh, let's just go swim in the river and say that we did this. So I might not have been the good boss, but I was learning how to hire people and what that means. And we talked business at the dinner table sometimes. And so I think that was a good start to entrepreneurial lifestyle.
It sounds like an awesome way to grow up. What is it about the outdoors, those experiences, even history, that you like so much?
Oh, there's so much there. Some of it didn't come until later. Even though we were out in the fields and stuff like that, we didn't find a lot of arrowheads, but my uncle did. And then later, when I was in college, I got into searching for them. And then I'd look up the history, and you could actually figure out the history of an arrowhead by how it's shaped. So then I started digging into that. And so that was intriguing. And then I got into dinosaurs, and that was intriguing. I studied business, though. I have an MBA. So I didn't go the natural history route or the creative route in a sense. But yeah, I think that's where I got an interest in it.
Why do you think you did study business and the I guess, the more traditional business element. Wow, that's a hell of a sentence. Why do you think you went that route as opposed to like going all in from the beginning on those other areas that interest you as a child?
You know, what really interested me was horses. So I actually went to my high school counselor and looked up equine science colleges that actually taught that. And there were a couple in Illinois, and that was an option. But I realized I would earn no money. I'd probably live in somebody else's barn. And I took business classes in high school, and I liked them. You know, I actually liked accounting, even though I didn't go down. I went the marketing route instead of accounting, but I was good at it. I enjoyed it. And I knew that maybe I would own my own horse instead of riding someone else's. And so I made the financial decision. I thought if I got a business degree, I can pay my own way in the world. Once you leave home with my parents, you're on your own. So I had to pay my own way. And so that was important that I get a degree that I thought would pay.
Very true. Very true. When you were taking these courses in college, did you kind of feel a pressure to go down a certain path or certain area of the business world?
Yeah, you know what? I started in accounting because I liked it in high school, but once I started taking that in college, I'm like, not so much. And I think I lean towards the marketing side because it is more creative and it's fun, and you know, you get to talk to people, and so I really enjoyed that much more than the accounting finance side. So I did, you know, change my path slightly, but still in the business school. And I did take some equine science classes on the side, but I didn't, was going to get a minor in that and never did. But that's a hard, they say that how to make $1 million in horses is to start with 2 million.
I can imagine. Well,
Yeah.
that had to be just absolutely crazy going from riding horses and discovering arrowheads to thinking about studying accounting. That's a pretty different day-to-day feeling there. I see why you're more drawn to the more creative elements. And I'm the same way with marketing as well. I just always love the creative potential there. And when you graduated, at that point, did you have any sort of an idea of the type of business that you would eventually start?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean, I was very entrepreneurial and thought someday I would own my own business. So almost from the start. And so there was a point where I put an ad out and said, I'll work for my horse's board because I was away from home and I missed my horses. And a person said, yeah, if you come ride my horses and help manage my farm, you can leave your horse here. And he was very entrepreneurial, eventually gave me a place to live, not just my horse. So that helped me get through college. So the one time that horses made money, they got me through college. My sophomore year, Joe Taylor was a co-founder with me, and he lived across the street, and he worked at a taxidermist that year. And actually that year I was probably 19 years old. And I said, someday I'm going to make the Inc. 500. And literally 12 years later, we did. So, I mean, I knew I wanted to go down this path. What that path would be, I probably didn't quite know. But he was working for a taxidermist, and they got a job to make trees for a nature center. And so then we realized, wow, people actually do this for a living. So what a strange
Right.
thing. And they had no idea, but you just figure it out. And they figured it out. And then I went to grad school, and then a year into that, Joe went and worked for Chase Studio, which is a competitor, friend in the industry. Our industry is really friendly. So even that taxidermist continued on and made museum exhibits, and he's still a friend to this day. We've worked together ever since. That's more than 30 years ago, and he just retired recently. So it's a really friendly industry. So I really like that about it. It's not maybe as cutthroat as I imagine the corporate world is. So that's pretty cool too. So Joe went and worked for Chase Studio. I finished grad school, and I actually started another business, and at that point was writing interactive computer programs for museums. And that was, pre-internet. So that's like going to the library, looking up museum names and doing a direct mail campaign. And
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was, well, we totally bootstrapped, but that one was bootstrapped too. And I got one gig, but eventually we decided to combine our skills, me being the business side and him the creative side, and started Taylor Studios. So we learned about it through his work and through work with Breeze Studios, and then learned there was a whole industry that people really did this for a living. And and during that time with that artifact collecting, we started making reproductions. And we actually asked Terry Chase at one point, can we make these reproductions and sell them? And we put them in a frame and tell a little story, or we created different things with them. And so we kind of started a mail order division. That was the start of Taylor Studios. Once Joe left Chase and we started Taylor Studios just on the kitchen table, and just totally bootstrapping it. But we developed that line, and along the way, we met a lot of archaeologists and paleontologists, and some of them allowed us to mold their fossils. Like we had dinosaur eggs and dinosaur claws and footprints, and then all the artifacts too, the points and arrows and things like that, atlatls and so forth. And we developed a whole mail order line. And so that kind of got us started and got our name out to museums and stuff, because to win work in this industry, you really need a portfolio. So but that was a start to bring in a little bit of cash and get our name out there. And yeah, so it kind of all morphed into where we wanted to go, if that makes sense.
And that answers a question that I've been dying to figure out, is why is it named Taylor Studios? And I think that's pretty self-explanatory now. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well, I didn't explain it all. So later we got married. And then the irony is, so we got married and started the business together, and in 1996 we got divorced, but we still maintained our friendship and the business. So we worked together for something like another 10 years before I bought him out completely. So I bought him out, I think, in 2005. 100%, but we're still friends to this day. So and I'm friends with his wife, and so that's a strange part of the story. And then I just changed my name back, which confuses everybody. So therefore, I always get this question.
I was going to say, a lot of changes back and forth. That had to be, I'm sure it was a roller coaster, but it's great that you're still on great terms. How was that dynamic after you had split on the personal side, but we're still together in business? I mean, there's got to be some tension there.
Well, and the tension really grew around the business growing, because for a while we were really mom and pop. We did the kitchen table, the garage, and we lived on the farm because I had to have horses. So that's always been a part of my life. So
of course, say no more.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so I negotiated with the landlord and, can I have my horses here, but I don't have any more money, and so, well, things like, will you, give my kids lessons? Will you do this? So I always bartered to get things. We even did that in business. Like I traded a bison skull for artifacts to get the business going. Cause, we really did bootstrap, public relations is less expensive than advertising. So that was a lot of it. And so, when we were mom and pop, we literally had employees working in what was our living room, where the kitchen table sat, became part of the employees' area. And then the landlord built us a production building. And so people were supportive along the way. But then, we grew, obviously making the Inc. 500 in 2000, we were growing. And so in 1998, we bought our first building, which was 12,000 square foot. And then, built two more and then bought another one. And now I have a 75,000 square foot production space and that original office building. But as the business grew, that means you got to develop process and procedure. And Joe being the creative and, you got to delegate the work, give other people authority, and just how we had different roles. I was always the business side and he was more like art director, creative. But, as the owners, you've got to develop process, you've got to train people, you've got to count on your people, and how our roles started to intersect. Like I was doing project management and what I call interpretive planning. And then we just started battling on how to run the company. And I have an employee that's still here from the house days to this time. And he's like, yeah, you guys used to go out in the front yard and argue. And I'm like, yeah, we didn't want to argue in front of the kids. and so that's really where the differences started. And I was asking Joe, do you want to do what it takes to grow this business? And what do you want here? And I think he really enjoyed the hands-on creative part, when he got his hands dirty and building the stuff, and when we were more mom and pop and had drinks on the porch at the end of the day. And, and as we grew and had more process and procedure, and he was doing paperwork and estimating and having to manage a group of people and give up some of the authority because we hired really talented people and they knew how to design. And I think that was a struggle, and how we wanted to do that, accountability, and make sure we add these procedures. it became difficult as business partners at that point.
Would love to rewind a little bit, get more into Taylor Studios and exactly what you do and how you've been able to grow. So to kind of set the stage there, pun intended, what is it that attracted you to museums as a business outlet for what you do?
Well, it's just like I said in the beginning, it's like, wow, people do this for a living. So you can go out there and tell these stories that impact thousands and thousands of visitors. And you get to tell these really cool stories, about history or archaeology and paleontology or culture. And why isn't that attractive, right? And you do it in a really creative way. I mean, we're known for our scenic work and our biological accuracy and our paleontological accuracy. And, we started in that niche, the scenic realm. I mean, other business ideas I had before that were like, we were going to do this retail shop where people come and tell their fishing stories, or even the interactive computer programming. It's just not as cool as telling stories in 3D for places like Gettysburg and Adler Planetarium and the D-Day Museum, now called the World War II Museum in New Orleans, and Smithsonian. I mean, we've done work in all those places all over the United States. We've worked in 44 states and 4 countries and done over 700 projects. I mean, maybe that's looking back and saying, yeah, why wouldn't you want to do that? But think about how many people we've impacted with inspiring, memorable stories. So why wouldn't you want to do that? It's just, who doesn't want to build woolly mammoths?
I say that every morning right after waking up.
I imagine, yeah.
No, you can feel the passion in your voice, and like it's clear you and team clearly have a lot of fun with it. And what is it so like building woolly mammoths is a gargantuan example, a mammoth example of it.
Yeah.
But what are the main things that you offer? You hear exhibits. Exhibits could mean a wide range of things. What really do you specialize in?
Yeah, so we plan, design, and build. So over the years, of course, we've expanded what we offer, and some things have gone away because we used to do hand-painted murals, and now we do those digitally and things like that. Our shop includes sculptors and painters and woodworkers and engineers and that kind of thing. So we can do the furniture also, so the casework part of it. We tell the whole story. So we come up with the interpretive planning side is helping them plan their storyline. So you create a central theme and sub-themes and storylines, and that drives everything. Everything else rises from the story. And then we have exhibit designers and graphic designers that, start out telling that story. And then it goes into fabrication where all of that kind of comes to life, and then we install it. And so it's for a diverse range of clients. Obviously, museums, we do a lot of nature centers, so we know nature. We're really good at that.
I would say so.
Yeah, yeah. And so a lot of nature centers and visitor centers and universities, and we've done some corporate exhibits. So it's a pretty diverse, like anybody that needs to tell their story in a memorable and inspiring way. So we've done like history walls for assisted living centers, for instance. So, because we're good storytellers. It's sort of like a company has a mission statement, sort of like, so we do that with the story. We create that central theme that drives everything. And it's not something, maybe an ad agency thinks of. There's a whole process around it that's really kind of tricky. So we're process driven, now that Joe's not here. No, I'm kidding. Sorry, Joe. He'll probably listen. So that's a joke.
It's a joke. It's literally a joke. It's a Joe with a K on. Okay, I'll stop.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're very process driven. So a little bit, we call ourselves a combination of art and business, because the business side kind of can really assure the client that there's going to be a really good process around it, from project management to art direction to quality control to the way we communicate with them.
So much of this goes back to storytelling. And storytelling, I think the concept of storytelling is a very simple and easy thing to understand. But when you look at the creations that you put out, and, as anybody that's been to a museum before knows, like, it's often daunting and yet, impressive at the same time when you see some of these, mammoth and gargantuan exhibits. And it just seems so extremely complicated. Like, I can't even imagine what the back end is like. But clearly you and your team have developed processes and a system over time to do it in an efficient manner. How does that work? Like, how are you able to do these complex things or things that are just ideas and turning them into just knockout awesome exhibits and stories?
Yeah, the language in our industry is called interpretive planning. And so there is a whole process you go through with the client, and they're the experts. So we have to get the story out of them. It's an interpretive planning process. I mean, we gather there's a whole bunch of steps along the way. And design actually takes a long time. It takes, for a large project, it could take a year to get through design, because a lot of our clients are very committee based. It's a lot of government oriented clients. And so we send them a deliverable, they'll take 2 weeks, to get it back to us. And then if there's changes, and, we do copywriting, so the graphic panels, and often have to teach our clients, less is more. And so you got to think about the audience. Like when you say you go into a museum, there is a lot of thought if it's going to be inspiring and memorable. And you don't want to walk up to a graphic panel and read a book. You got to think about if the visitor remembers one thing, what do you want that to be? And that's probably your central theme. And you've got to organize it and have a hierarchy so that the colors make sense, and the visitor knows that, oh, I'm in a different section now. This is a different storyline, a different sub-theme. I mean, they're obviously not going to use that language, but just for it to be easy for the visitor to be inspired by it. It does take a lot of working with the client and having workshops with them and going back and forth with deliverables. And copy can be really difficult in the graphics. That's sort of the Achilles heel of the schedule because you have to get it printed and then proof it. And everybody thinks they're a copywriter. So there's a lot of opinions, including me, like, you ended that sentence in a preposition. I don't like that. And then they'll send me strength and white and say, no, it's acceptable. So my poor interpretive planners, really have to learn how to work with clients well, because our clients obviously are really passionate about their story, as they should be. And so that can be really tricky. And so, yeah, there are a lot of steps.
Yeah, the clients have to be passionate about what they do. I mean, if there's no exhibits, if stuff isn't getting out there, if like this history isn't getting out there and presented in an attractive way, then I mean that completely ruins like what they're in for and why they're about it in the first place, as far as getting people to celebrate the history and learn about these things. What makes an effective, compelling exhibit in your mind?
There was this old Saturday Night Live skit, and I don't remember it exactly, but it was like, I want to transform you to another time and place. And there was an accent that I was just faking really bad right there. But
No,
that's
that was good. It might be copyright infringement, but
right, right. Yeah, I mean, if you can transform them to another time and place, which some of our immersive exhibits can do that, we can take you back to the Pleistocene when the mammoths lived, or if there's a big wow, as we call them, and sometimes little wows, because it might be a small artifact that's memorable. If you can hit multiple senses, because everybody has different learning styles, everybody brings in their own personal preferences and paths to the exhibit. So one thing might attract one person and completely repel another person. So you've got to really know your audience. It's strange now that there's COVID, but the push pre-COVID was, to touch it, to crank the cranky do, to make sure it was really interactive. Of course, we've had to pull back from that a bit now. But, if that exhibit could get to change their behavior, for instance, like if you go and plant a milkweed, you'll save the butterfly, so maybe someone will go home and do that. Or if it makes them curious, we have like this woodpecker interactive where you crank the cranky do and the tongue comes out and it shows you how long the tongue of this thing is. Or you pull these plates together and you know what plate tectonics are. Or we have a recent one where you fill the wagon as if you're going out west and you have to decide what to put in the wagon because you can only put so much. So if the interactive definitely has to reinforce the topic, make you more curious. So if you can get someone to be curious about something, or feel like they have been transformed to another time and place, I would say that's successful. Or if they go, wow, that would be cool.
and I think that applies for anything, whether it's specifically with exhibits or just anybody who has customers. If you can make them excited about something, whatever you're offering, and they have a fantastic experience and kind of soak up the story of it from that angle, then it just bodes so much better for you.
Absolutely, it applies. And I think it's an experience. It is more than an exhibit. I like the word experience.
Mm, I like that as well. Yeah, it's an experience just hearing the word experience. But when you rattled off some examples with the tectonic plates and the longest tongue in the world, what what are some memorable experiences that you've worked on over the years that come to mind, top of mind?
Yeah, I think like if you ask anybody around Taylor Studios, everybody has a different favorite exhibit because everything's personal, right? One of mine is a park near my hometown that I hung out as a kid, climbing the rocks and hiking the trails, and then got to do exhibits there. So that's meaningful because then, aunts and uncles got to see what I do. So that was, it's called Star Rock State Park, and now they actually have 1 million visitors. And I think we did that exhibit 20 years ago, and it's still in place. So we build them durable. So
Yeah.
yeah, and the visitors are tough on that one. But so that one means a lot to me. But I mean, we've done, Gettysburg. I mean, that is so cool. We did their cyclorama exhibit. We did all the ground form. There was another company that did conservation on this, the mural that was painted actually a little bit after the war, and so that's still there. And so we built a scene that's really immersive. The visitor comes into this cyclorama, which basically surrounds you as a visitor, and then it's this light and audio show, and takes you to this battle. And so to say you did, to do work at Gettysburg is just like so cool. And there's just endless ones. Even just Adler Planetarium at the time, I think those were the biggest planet models out there. So you can drive by it and see our planets. And I think I can't remember, the Louisiana Arts and Science, did they want to go bigger? Then it becomes like a competition, like who has the biggest Jupiter? you know.
Well,
But
Jupiter has the biggest Jupiter.
right, yeah, true. Yeah, and so that's cool. We recently did a job in Iceland and built this rock cliff with hundreds of birds on it. And so I got to go to Iceland, so that's cool. And the client was awesome and got me a horse ride there. So you can't beat a client like that.
Wow. I feel like horses are just always the secret to your heart. So I think any client
Right.
needs to know that when they research you.
They should, yes, they should provide horse rides.
But those are amazing. I mean, the fact that like Gettysburg and Iceland can be, in back-to-back sentences is just out of this world. When you look back on how you've grown, I mean, because you've talked about even from the beginning, like it seems like it picked up at a pretty rapid pace and you started getting more and more clients and now clearly have like the top of the top clients in the space that you're in. What do you think has driven that growth? Like, can you kind of narrow it down to a few key elements?
Yeah, I do think it's a little bit of that art plus business. That's changed over time, but a lot of our competitors were more the art side. So they might not hit the schedule, or they might not back up their product. And so, we brought in those processes that, help build the relationship with clients. And so we have a 5-year warranty on our design build project. So we back up our work. And I think it was just building those relationships and coming through for our clients and always offering value and guaranteeing, even in the early years, we did this job at the World Fishing Center in Florida, and we did this outdoor photo op of a swordfish. So like you stand next to the swordfish and take your photo. And I had given a young artist a chance that he begged to sculpt it. I'm like, okay, you can sculpt it. Well, we put the eye in backwards. And the client called, of course, and said, the eye's not right. Because our clients, they know, like we built a whale once and a whale expert came in and inspected it. So it has to be that accurate.
Oh, you always got to watch out for those whale inspectors.
Right. Watch out for whale inspectors. That was still in the house days before, we were still young and bootstrapping it, and, cash was a problem. And I said, we'll redo it, and so that was, at least $10,000 at that time. And we backed up our product and did it. And so that, comes back to our core values of honesty and integrity. And, so now we have a 65% repeat client rate. And when you think about that, that's really strange, because sometimes these clients, like I said, leave these exhibits in there for 20 years. So sometimes that means state parks will come back repeatedly, or we have had clients that, oh, the exhibit's 10 years old now, let's redo it. And they've come back, or maybe they've just added on a new exhibit or a new piece. But our clients come back and come back and come back. And so that's helped us grow. And I think it's just that reputation we have, and the ease of working with us. We're friendly and fun too. So even though it's process driven and we'll hold them accountable, we're fun. We're fun to hang out with.
Yeah, maybe. I don't really know.
Maybe,
No,
maybe.
you definitely are, and I think the customer service just sounds like off the charts. Like you clearly care deeply about your customers and the relationship you have. And I think it's so cool that like even in the early days when you were strapped for cash, like you would bend over backwards to make sure that something was right if the client felt it was a little bit off. That's just awesome to hear. Podcasts are awesome as well. They just take a ton of time. If you want to focus on interviewing some amazing guests, talking to some fascinating people, but you don't want to deal with all the other stuff involved in running a podcast, you know where to go. MaxPodcasting.com. Now, prepare to switch gears a little bit and learn more about Betty Brennan. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's get to a segment on inspiration and creativity. And so when you look at your team, and I mean, this is a team, I mean, you talked about how before you got your X thousand space area, like this was a team where like they were working in your kitchen.
Yeah,
You know, if you had an argument, you had to go out in the front yard to argue about it.
yeah, right.
So, what is it that you do, or just that you've created with the culture that allows your team to think and operate with so much creativity and so much passion?
Yeah, it is a passionate, creative team. I think some of it is, I hate to say typical, but or I even hate to say best practices, but we have a mission and core values, and when we interview, we want to make sure that they believe in those too, and so those are really prominent all over the company. They're on signs everywhere, so that we all sort of believe in the same things. I have lunches with folks, we stay in touch. Even now they're virtual lunches, and we try to have those company meetings. We try to keep everybody as informed as possible. And, the department heads of each of my department, really get the kudos for, continuing to develop the culture. And we do employee surveys. So, we always haven't been successful. We certainly have turnover. And so then we'll do something like an employee survey and see, what's going wrong, what more do we need to do. And so those have been a bit transformational in the last couple years, to make sure we're understanding what the employees want. And we recently, developed an intranet, knowledge base. A lot of them wanted more training. And I think for me, a little bit, I think it's the first time in human history we got like 4 generations working together. And we all come from sort of different backgrounds and think differently. And so millennials think differently than me. And so you have to listen and adapt. And they wanted, more stuff where they could access resources. And so we have that knowledge base that we're building so that that's accessible to employees, so they can go look at examples or go, here's the checklist you can refer to when you're doing that. So just kind of all kinds of things. We do strategic planning every year. And if that rises to the top, then that's something we focus on. Yeah, I don't know. Did that answer the culture? Culture is important, very much so.
It did. I just completely zoned out because I'm a millennial. So no, those
There you go.
those darn millennials. What are they doing? Yeah, it's
Right.
crazy. I mean, it's a crazy challenge to blend the different generations and the different. It's a beautiful challenge there. Another element that your team needs to have and needs to excel at is really, really knowing the projects, knowing the history, and knowing these things you're working on super duper well. So how do you educate yourself and the team on these experiences that you do? Like when a client comes to you and has a project for you, what are your steps as far as gathering information and making sure that you have everything you need to perform and execute it as they want it?
Yeah, and every client's different because some have gone through interpretation before, so sometimes they have some of this stuff prepared. But we start out with gathering resources, and so we have a whole questionnaire we send to a client. It's a lot of workshops. It's visiting them. It's really getting to know the client. The interpretive planner is the one that does the storyline and does the research and the copywriting. So they dig in deep into that, and then work as a team with the exhibit designer and the graphic designer. And of course, there's a project manager on every team also. So everybody has different roles. And then we lean on the clients. Sometimes we have to get outside expert advice, and we have University of Illinois nearby, so sometimes we can go there and find an expert. So we have to do the research, but often our clients, are the experts, and we can, they can help guide us if we're stumbling on something, for instance.
So it sounds like it's a lot of listening. Like it's a lot of kind of sitting there at the start and just soaking it up.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that is key in those workshops with these clients. And, that is what we've heard from clients that have worked with other studios, is that we're really good at listening to them and understanding their stories and their wants and needs. Yeah. You have to meet with the client a lot to gather all of that.
Oh my God. Yeah. Probably not just like a quick 15-minute call or something like that.
No, no, but on the other hand, I used to be more involved in each project, but as we grew, my role changed. But it's also a lot of fun. I mean, you get to learn about so many different things, whether it's like Egypt or a woolly mammoth, so it can be
You're
really
already,
fun.
here we go. Record of woolly mammoth references.
Yeah. I like the Ice Age. What's your favorite time period?
I do think the Ice Age is really cool. I probably need to study the different periods more to know what's the proper answer for this, but I'll say Ice Age for now. But no, I love I'm not sure if it's prehistoric or Jurassic or what, but I did like totally love dinosaurs growing up. So that's always cool. I just always thought it was cool when you go to a museum and there's an experience of like a giant T-Rex or
Yeah.
Stegosaurus or woolly mammoth, like, especially in your case, I know you do so well. Like the more lifelike it is and the more like actual size it is, I think is so cool. So I like the big roaming things.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've asked people that before, like, what's your favorite time period? And I'll get things like lunchtime. So it's kind of a joke because I like the
Yeah.
Pleistocene and people think I'm
Going out for a
a
walk. Yeah.
right.
Speaking of fun as well, on a personal note for you, so you've talked about lots of things you're interested in. Now that like the business has been up and running for quite some time now, obviously you need to detach yourself and take breaks at some point. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do in your free time other than horses and arrowheads? Because I won't let you answer that.
Yeah, horses are a big part of it. Maybe that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I really am into the outdoors. And so hiking, I have a farm. And so I've also done my own conservation work. So planting native plants, getting rid of invasive species, I travel a lot, and I love to read. I've dabbled in photography and video. I'm not very good, but I enjoy so many things. There's just like, you don't have time to do all the things that you would be interested in. The consistent, of course, is the horses and the outdoors, but I've dabbled in lots of other things, and I'm just curious, and enjoy dabbling in things. And so if I didn't have to sleep, I could do more of that stuff.
I know, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's tough when you have like a really, really exciting day and stuff goes on. You have new developments you're super excited about, and then you just like want to get to it, and then you realize, you know what, I gotta sleep tonight. Uh,
Right. Yes.
as far as books go, what genres is there a typical genre that you are attracted to?
It's been a lot of business over the years, but I try to dabble in, I like history, and I pick up fiction. So, horses, of course.
No,
Yeah, I know,
no.
that's surprising. Recently, I am actually writing a book. That's really scary to say out loud, because will it happen? Will it be any good? All those kind of
That's
things.
awesome.
So recently I've been listening to business memoirs. So I listened to Shoe Dog recently, which I really liked. And then when I
Oh
bought it,
yeah.
I'm like, I'm not that interested. And then it was a really good book. And then I just listened to Robert Iger's book on Disney, but also reading In the Garden of the Beast. That's by Larson. It's sort of pre-World War II in Germany. He was an ambassador in Germany, so it's a deep story. So sometimes it can be all over the board. I mean, I've been into science fiction before. Ender's Game is a good one. Used to be into horror. I read Stephen King, back in the 80s, so it's been a long time. So it's, I
Horror and
try to,
horses.
horror and horses, exactly.
That's the name of your memoir. That doesn't
There you
really
go, horror and
maybe
horses.
not sound right for a memoir, but I actually, my dad is a huge fan of Shoe Dog. Like he read it and was like, "Oh, that might be like the best business story I've ever heard."
Oh, really? Wow. I'm glad to hear that, because I was just surprised at how it was a really good story. I mean, it was it's funny because it's about grit and overcoming things. It's just the constant challenges of being in business, and you're almost wore out listening to it, and then you get to the end, and he's like, "Hey, I want to do it again."
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get to a fan favorite segment called the Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
The Wild Business Shout Out of the Week.
I know it's very, very impressive. Wild Business Shout Out of the Week. This is where we talk about a campaign, social media approach, marketing tactic, whatever experience that caught our attention, and hashtag the cowboy.
All right. Yeah. Hashtag the cowboy from the National Cowboy Museum in Oklahoma City. Actually, one of my employees pointed it out to me at the beginning of COVID. Like, have you seen this? So, of course, I started following it. And basically, the museum knew they were going to have to shut down and none of the employees were going to go in except security. So they handed off social media to their security guy, Tim. And he's just a wholesome, down home, all shucks kind of guy. And so he would he would walk around the museum, and he loves the museum. So he's like, whatever I can do for the museum. And he would just walk around. And I think the thing about the hashtag is, I don't know if it's a joke, but somebody said you got to put a hashtag in front of it. So he spelled it out. And then in his tweets, he's like, "Oh, my nephew told me that's actually a pound sign, but then it became branded hashtag the cowboy." He's just really authentic, which I really like. I like that it's just sort of authentic. It's more about people than the logo, kind of thing. And it went wild. Their following, I don't know, increased like 2,000 times. So, we'll see if it leads to more visitors when they can fully open, but he's just been fun, because he makes these silly mistakes, and, I don't know if they're purposeful or if it's, he didn't know social media. So like he'd posted on Facebook a couple times. So he's on Instagram, and Twitter is where he really took off. And so I did look it up a little bit, and I thought it was sort of accidental, but they thought it through, and they had a good, when they handed it off, I gave him some pointers. And so he often jokes in his tweets, like, Seth from marketing said for me to do this, and it's just down home, authentic and fun. And it worked. It just, took off. Boom.
I love how you described him as an aw shucks kind of guy, because that probably puts it better than any other way you could put it. But I think it's amazing that it took off the way it did. And as a museum, you have so much material to pull from. The challenge might be that you have what direction do you go in? Because it's like you're suffocated by choice because there's too many options there. What do you think is working so well about this for the Cowboy Museum? Like, why do you think it's taken off the way it did?
I think it's because he's authentic, and it's not a polished marketing person. And, it was okay that he made some mistakes, and his love of the museum and the content comes through. You can tell he just loves it. And so that passion and love comes through in an authentic way. Yet he can make mistakes, and that's just been fun. Maybe something that we needed when we're all locked up is just sort of authentic, down home, but here's this story. So I think it's authenticity in a sense, and that marketing handed it off to someone else, and they did a really good job.
Yeah, and it seems like such a simple thing to be like, here, somebody else do this. But I think that how raw and real it is, people are just like subconsciously attracted to that. Like when it's like, hey, you know what, this isn't a marketing team that's like handling this. This is somebody else. Like it's that simple change is clearly can do a lot of things for your brand.
It certainly resonated with the world. And I think, sometimes maybe when I go, like I did a Facebook Live once and forgot, and the camera didn't rotate to horizontal and it was wrong. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and so you
Sitting
feel
sideways.
so bad. Yeah. And so it's nice that the world accepts those mistakes, and that's the authenticity of him, I think. And that's okay. So that's kind of, I think, nice because I've made mistakes, and yet I'm just trying to get the word out there, kind of thing, and be authentic too. And we used to edit our videos and do so much work on them, and it took a lot of labor. And so it's nice to know that you can just do a selfie video and that's authentic, and people are okay with that. And it's about the people, it's about the team, and that resonates. To build a relationship and a following and a membership to your brand.
And you learned what a hashtag was as part of the campaign. So
I did,
you
yeah.
got
So
that.
that's good to know.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Well, that is an unusual campaign in the best way. And I want to get to unusual in your case. So, pet peeves, quirks, weird talents. This is a segment called The Unusual. What is a weird talent you have? Like something that doesn't really have an impact on your business, but just something that you're just naturally have a knack for. It could be like something small around the house or a memory trick, something like that.
Yeah, I'll stay away from horses. I can drive a tractor and put the appropriate equipment on it and handle the PTO and the loader, and I can use a chainsaw. So maybe the unusual talent is I can do my own farm work.
I think so. Yeah, that's a hell of a combination, a tractor and chainsaw. You know what? I
Right.
think horror and horses. I think that
Here
is a
we
good name
go.
for him.
Yeah, that'll be the memoir title.
You got a whole next chapter of your career here as the next Stephen King, I think.
There you go. Yeah, can combine those. We actually have a haunted house in our fabrication studio. So I teamed up with one of my employees, and he runs a haunt experience, an attraction, and it's pretty good when you can make characters like that and build the scenes that we know how to build. So our KPI, our key performance indicator, is how many people wet their pants.
Every business should have that.
Right.
How about quirks? Is there something that maybe somebody on your team or family friend calls you out for that's just a little bit quirky about your personality, besides the obsession with horses, chainsaws, and making people pee their pants?
Right. Yeah, those are good quirks. Yeah, it might not be the usual, but I operate at really high speed. And so I've had employees go, do you really need another cup of coffee? And we do this personality testing here for DISC, and I'm a high D, so dominant. I prefer to call it drive. And one of my employees was training on it at a company meeting, and she goes, and yeah, Betty will come in and we'll have a conversation, and then all of a sudden she's just gone. And they know when I'm coming down the stairs because I'm running. And so, I've had to learn, be self-aware about that and learn to slow down and to pause. So it can be a detriment too, but I'm just a high-speed person. Probably talking too fast in this podcast.
Well, I'm gonna slow your track down, so we'll be totally
Okay,
good with it.
good.
How about pet peeves? What's your biggest pet peeve?
I would say unethical salespeople or hard sales. Like I live out in the country, so to have high speed is really difficult. So I had a company that promised like 20 times the speed, and it was actually slower than what I had. So then they pushed it, and there can be bad horse sellers that drug the horses when you're buying them. So that's really freaking dangerous. Or people that call, and my assistant answers the phone. She'll call me and she's like, they said that they had an appointment with you, and it's like an outright lie. So that's a pet peeve.
Definitely grinds your gears,
Right.
ticks you off. Well, we'll try not to tick you off with this. Let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
Okay, I guess so.
I guess so. That's the enthusiasm we want.
Yeah, we'll see what these questions are.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll start you off with a couple that is familiar territory for you.
Okay.
Horses. What's your favorite breed of horses?
Oh my gosh, that is still tough. I'll go to, it used to be Arabian. I'll go Andalusian now. They're a Spanish horse.
All right, cool. Was gonna guess that.
Yeah.
What's a horse riding tip that you can share?
Heels down, toes up.
Oh, that's easy. I think
Yeah,
I'm ready. I'm ready to
Right.
hop up.
You can do it.
You say you pretty much grew up on a farm. You hear so much about people waking up super early in farm life.
Uh-huh.
What time would you typically wake up?
Most of my career it was 4:30, but now I have the luxury, and my alarm goes off at like 5:45, and I'm up at 6.
Wow, you are really slacking.
I know.
You
I
are
feel
really
like it.
slacking
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah. I gave myself a break.
And then I know you work with such a wide range of museum. You can't, choose your favorite children, but what is it could be a museum or just kind of like a type of center that you've walked in that you didn't really know what to expect and it just made your jaw drop?
Wow, that's a tough question.
Thank you. Here all week.
This is a client, so maybe it's unfair, but there's a Audubon Insectarium in New Orleans, and who would think you'd be into insects? But they do an awesome job. They really do a great job of immersing you into insects. I had to win the job though. I had to eat like chocolate ants and stuff. So they do have them in their cafeteria also. So it's a pretty big, wild place. They do a really good job.
I knew this would be a wide-ranging and entertaining interview, but I did not know chocolate ants would come up at all.
Right. Yeah, you should have some for lunch.
Last bonus question for you. Yeah. How was your experience? What do chocolate ants taste like?
I don't know. I ate them really quickly. I mean, it was almost like you want to win this job, eat these ants. But then later, as I got to know them, then I went ahead and ate other things.
Well, congrats on winning Fear Factor. But
Yeah.
Betty, this has been amazing, fascinating, and just awesome all around. Thank you so much for taking the time, sharing your story, and congrats on all your amazing success. Where is the best place for people to reach you and to connect and learn more about Taylor Studios?
Yeah, we're really active on LinkedIn. So you can find Taylor Studios Inc. on LinkedIn or go to our website, which is taylorstudios.com. We're very active on Facebook, so you can find Taylor Studios Inc. there. And I'm also personally active on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. On Twitter, we're not as active, but that's at TSI Exhibits. And Instagram is Taylor Studios Inc. And you can go to Flickr too, if you want to see our portfolio. So
There
we're
we
all
go.
over the place. Yeah.
And the next chocolate-covered ant eating convention.
Right. We'll be there.
Well, thanks again. Last thing here, final thoughts. The stage is yours. The museum is yours. Send us off here. It could be a line, a quote, whatever you want. Wrap us up here.
Yeah, I have a favorite quote, and it's probably pretty common, but I'm going to go ahead and read it. It's a little bit long, but it's by Theodore Roosevelt, and it's called The Man in the Arena. And so it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly. So that is his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. So to me, in these trying times, it's just a reminder that sometimes the journey is tough, but the challenge is worth it. There's those mountain climbers that risk frostbite and so forth, but they get to the top and then they're like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do this again. So it's just sort of to cheer everybody on, to keep plowing forward, to have some grit and rise up to the challenge and go for it.
I am ready to run through a wall, and not an exhibit or experience wall, because Betty is awesome. Thank you so much, Betty, for coming on the show, sharing your story, your amazing lessons, and helping me out with horseback riding. And thank you, wild listeners, for tuning into another episode. If you want to hear more episodes of the Wild Business Growth Podcast, make sure to subscribe on your favorite app and tell a friend about the podcast. You can also find us on Good Pods, and for any help with podcast production, you can find out more at MaxPodcasting.com. Until next time, let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!